When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for the shoppers buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with ShopPay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/audioboom. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/audioboom to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/audioboom.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
10 to 6, Friday evening. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC means, as you know, one thing. As the sun sinks on another glorious Friday evening, the cold of the first tin stings in your mitts. You can relax back and let him take it from here. From Washington, D.C., Simon Marks, American Week.
Tom, for the second time since January, the world has witnessed history being made in the Oval Office for all the wrong reasons. The inconceivable became the inevitable as President Donald Trump decided it was time for another world leader to be mugged in the seat of American power. You will remember that back in February, his first victim was President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you're gambling with World War III.
At the time, we were not entirely sure whether that shameful attack was premeditated or spur of the moment. But the drubbing unleashed this week on South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, well, that was definitely pre-planned.
They're being executed, and they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers. And that's a tough situation. I don't know how you explain that. How do you explain that?
President Trump demanding answers from his visitor after falling victim several months ago to a disinformation campaign about South Africa promoted by prominent far-right figures in his inner circle, including, but not limited to, Elon Musk. Donald Trump insists there is an unreported genocide taking place in South Africa, targeting white Afrikaner farmers. He's even opened America's doors to them, granting more than 50 of them refugee status earlier this month, giving them a fast track to US citizenship at a time when, remember, he has slammed America's door in the faces of virtually all other refugees from around the world.
They won't even report this. If this were the other way around, it would be the biggest story. Now, I will say apartheid, terrible. That was the biggest story. That was reported all the time.
Well, at least he conceded that apartheid was terrible, because I think it's possible that was in doubt. But then came the centrepiece of this week's hour-long live Oval Office edition of The Trump Show. A reporter asked President Trump what would change his mind about South Africa, given that on the facts he is flatly wrong when he claims that the government there is seizing land from Afrikaner farmers without compensation. It has never happened. And so President Ramaphosa, seeing an opening, suggested that he knew what it would take.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here.
Nice move by the South African leader, who knew this was going to be a tough meeting and had brought with him golfers Ernie Els and Retief Goosen and Johan Rupert, one of South Africa's wealthiest businessmen, all of them old friends of the American leader. So now Donald Trump faces a choice. He can wrap up the impromptu made-for-TV drubbing and let President Ramaphosa try to change his mind behind closed doors, or he can keep going. Guess which choice he made.
We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and I could show you a couple of things. And it has to be responded to. Yeah. Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down.
People are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one.
For 4 long minutes, Cyril Ramaphosa and his entourage were forced to watch a video featuring threatening speeches made by extremists who lead fringe parties in South Africa. Newspaper articles were brandished with violent images that in some cases turned out not even to be from South Africa. And the president entirely misrepresented a video that he claimed showed mass graves, even though in fact it shows a protest and the crosses were simply symbolic. Literally every word that comes out of his mouth here is false.
These are burial sites right here. Each one of those white things you see is a cross. And there's approximately 1,000 of them. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed.
And there it is, in 30 seconds, the total triumph of disinformation. He has been fed this nonsense by far-right critics of the South African government. He has expelled South Africa's ambassador. Some of his lawmakers want diplomatic relations with South Africa to be severed. And he is threatening to boycott the G20 summit that will be held in Johannesburg in November, at which President Trump is supposed to receive the gavel so he can host next year's event in the United States.
We have too many deaths. It's not only white farmers. It's across the board.
Afrikaner businessman Johan Rupert urged President Trump to see South Africa not as a malign actor that should be sanctioned or cut off by the United States, but as a democracy that needs America's help.
Remember, sir, you and I lived in New York in the 70s. We never thought New York could be what it became. We need your help to stop this awful killing.
On and on it went, but the more the South Africans in the room insisted that the president was trafficking in disinformation and failing to understand the reality in their country, where a massive crime wave impacts the black community far more than the Afrikaners, the more President Trump doubled down. And here's why this matters, because if it can happen to President Ramaphosa, victimized because of a genocide that he is not conducting, or it can happen to President Zelensky, accused by President Trump again this week of pocketing American money, even though not a single dollar has gone missing, if it can happen to them, any world leader, including our own Prime Minister, could one day find themselves in a similar situation with disinformation forging US foreign policy. Shortly after the South Africans beat a retreat, Washington was stunned by an appalling event on Wednesday night.
What happened is really the realization of all of the Jewish community's worst fears.
Ted Deutsch of the American Jewish Committee, speaking after 2 employees of the Israeli embassy were shot to death on the streets of Washington, D.C. after they attended an event at the Jewish Museum. The gunman was taken into custody shouting "Free Palestine" as he was led away by police. The victims, a young couple about to get engaged. Their boss, the Israeli ambassador, Yashiel Leiter.
Together we won't be afraid. Together we'll stand, and we're going to overcome moral depravity of people who think that they're going to achieve political gains through murder.
Police say this was an isolated incident, but security is being tightened at Jewish and Israeli sites all over the country. The other major development of this American week came last Sunday.
We begin tonight with breaking news as former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with what they're calling an aggressive form of prostate cancer, which has spread to his bones.
The cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management.
But as the TV networks scrambled to cover the story, the realization dawned that the only new element about the former president's cancer was its revelation. On MSNBC's Morning Joe, host Joe Scarborough, a huge Biden booster last year, seemed stunned by what oncologist Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel was telling him.
For those just tuning in, you believe it is likely that he could have had it for several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days.
It is unclear why at his annual physical exams the former president's blood tests appear never to have screened him for prostate cancer. Vice President J.D. Vance, ever the sensitive type, could have done the decent thing and waited to pounce. But that wouldn't be very on brand, would it?
We wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job.
He's a lovely bloke, isn't he? Now, many Americans may choose to spend the end of this particularly gruelling week in their local bar, and some of them may decide to raise a glass this weekend to toast perhaps the most famous barfly the country has ever known.
Afternoon, everybody. No!
How you doing, Norm?
Cut the small talk and give me a beer.
George Wendt, the roly-poly actor who played the role of Norm Peterson on the sitcom Cheers, died this week at the age of 76. Norm, whose every arrival in the bar was heralded by those assembled within it, became the most popular character on the show. He appeared in every single episode across an 11-year run. And it all started with a call from George Wendt's agent at a time when he was already working elsewhere.
My agent called and said, honey, they want you to do this Cheers. Now, you're not available. It's really small, though. I go, oh, okay. How small? Well, it's really just one line. I go, oh, okay. Oh, actually, it's one word. Come to think of it, it's one syllable. And I go, what's the syllable? She goes, beer.
From that one syllable, a legend was born. George Wendt got his start as a janitor in a comedy club in Chicago. He had more than 170 film and TV credits to his name. But Tom, his name was rather sublimated to that of Norm, the character he played in the bar where... Come on, sing it with me.
Where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
And it's cheers to Simon Marks and his American Week from Washington, D.C.